The first mistake the aliens made was assuming the human cadet was defenseless. Mara Vance sat in the third row of Lecture Hall Kappa 7, boots planted flat against the polished stone floor, posture loose enough to look bored. She looked wrong in the room, too small, too soft, too pink. Her uniform was regulation coalition gray, but it still looked like a costume on her, as if she hadn't earned the right to wear it yet. That was what they thought. Around her, the future warlords of the galaxy waited out the lecture like predators trapped in a cage together. Chitinous legs clicked. Spines flexed. A pair of Varkal twins sharpened their forearm blades against each other for fun. A Jacquard cadet unhinged his jaw slightly, letting his fangs show in what passed for a smile. Humans were new. Worse, they were unpredictable. Earth had crawled onto the galactic stage bloodied and stubborn, dragging centuries of warfare, rebellion, and mutually assured stupidity behind it like a badge of honor. The Coalition had accepted humanity not because they were polite or advanced, but because they were terrifyingly good at surviving. That didn't sit well with empires that had spent millennia sitting on top of the food chain. Mara took handwritten notes, while Professor Croth, a six-limbed Threxian whose voice sounded like two mountains grinding together, lectured about ethical proportional response in asymmetric conflict. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Fear, Croth droned, is an inefficient weapon. It invites retaliation. A low chuckle rippled through the hall. Someone behind Mara leaned forward and whispered, not quite softly enough. Then why does your species smell like it? Mara didn't react. She'd heard worse by the time she was 12. The lecture dragged. The air grew heavy with tension, the kind that precedes violence or revelation. Mara felt it crawling up her spine, old instincts humming awake. Her fingers brushed the edge of her desk, a subtle check-in. Underneath, something shifted. Not much. Just enough. Across the hall, the Jacquard cadet flicked his wrist. A small metallic sphere rolled across the floor, clinking softly as it bounced once, twice, and came to rest directly beneath Mara's desk. A few cadets leaned back casually. Others leaned forward eager. The sphere warmed. Mara recognized the device instantly. Plasma compression mine. Military issue. Designed to detonate inward, liquefying whatever unfortunate body happened to be nearby while leaving the surrounding structure mostly intact. Clean. Efficient. Plausibly deniable. The professor kept talking. Mara exhaled slowly, the way her mother had taught her before her first firefight. Her heart rate barely ticked up. This wasn't fear. This was annoyance. She slid her foot back an inch. The mine activated. Instead of exploding, it vanished. There was a sound beneath the desk, not loud, not dramatic. A crunch. Followed by a wet, grinding chew, like machinery fed something it was never meant to process. The heat spike disappeared. The room went silent. Cross stopped mid-sentence, all six of his eyes focusing on Mara's desk. Cadet Vance? Mara raised her hand politely. Yes, Professor? What? Cross said slowly. Is beneath your station? Mara glanced down, then back up. A deterrent. The floor vibrated. Low. Controlled. Alive. A faint red glow leaked from beneath the desk, painting Mara's boots in the color of old blood. Several cadets recoiled instinctively. One of the Varkal twins hissed and scraped backward, claws screeching against stone. The Jacquard cadet rose halfway from his seat. That's not allowed, he snarled. No bonded war beasts are. The desk lifted. Not toppled. Lifted, as if something beneath it had straightened its spine. The glow deepened. Shadows bent inward, folding around a shape that didn't obey geometry so much as negotiate with it. The air thickened, pressure squeezing lungs and hearts alike. A voice filled the room without traveling through it. Threat neutralized. Some cadets screamed. Others ran. The professor backed away, mandibles clacking in panic. Security! Security! Mara placed her palm flat on the desk. Down, she said quietly. The presence receded just enough for the room to breathe again. The desk settled. The glow dimmed. Silence returned, heavier than before. Mara stood. She turned slowly, meeting the gaze of the Jacquard cadet, who now looked less like a predator and more like prey, realizing it had made a terminal error. "You dropped something," she said. "It won't happen again." The cadet bolted. Security arrived moments later, armored, overarmed, and utterly unprepared for what they felt pressing against their senses. Weapons were raised. Scanners screamed nonsense readings. Psychic dampeners overloaded and shattered like glass. Mara didn't resist as they escorted her out. She didn't need to. Because whatever followed her didn't walk behind her. It loomed. And as the lecture hall doors sealed shut, the galaxy took its first real step toward understanding a terrible truth. Humanity didn't bring monsters to war. They brought family. And family didn't forgive attempts on their own. The official reports called it a minor disciplinary incident. The cadets involved had supposedly withdrawn voluntarily. No charges were pressed. The galaxy, however, whispered a different truth. Under Mara's desk, the creature had always been there. Always waiting. Older than the stars, sharper than anything the Coalition had weaponized, and bound to her not by chains, but by choice. Humanity didn't capture monsters. Humanity made allies of monsters. They moved her to a reinforced debriefing chamber, a hexagonal cell lined with null fields, psychic dampeners, and reinforced alloy walls. Every precaution the Coalition had ever imagined to contain something dangerous was in place. Every alarm was screaming. Every cadet who had seen it, or even felt it, was convinced the universe had tilted on its axis. Mara stepped inside calmly. The officers, a mix of Kroth, Phyrexian, and Jacquard bureaucrats, braced themselves. Their scanners were picking up nothing. No life signatures. No psychic readings. Yet the hairs on their arms stood, necks tingled, and stomachs roiled. Then the lights flickered. A shadow pulled on the floor. It twisted and elongated, folding into itself, until it was 6 meters tall, far too many joints to be anatomically comfortable, skin stretched like molten iron over jagged bone. Its eyes, red, patient, infinite, fixed on the closest officer. "I have learned restraint," it said in perfect Coalition standard voice, soft but carrying the weight of worlds. "You are welcome." The officer staggered backward, jaws slack. Weapons jammed spontaneously. Shields overloaded. Some vomited. One tried to scream. The sound got stuck halfway through his throat. Mara didn't flinch. She had spent years learning how to keep calm while the universe tried to kill her. Now, sitting in a cadet's uniform, she was finally in a place where others realized the meaning of fear. "You have questions," Mara said quietly. "Ask." "Explain," demanded a Kroth admiral, mandibles quivering. "This thing cannot exist here. No bonded entity can." "Bonded?" Mara raised an eyebrow. "You misunderstand. It is not a weapon. It is family. It is old, yes. Dangerous, yes. But loyal. And it chooses me as I choose it." She knelt and touched the edge of the platform. The creature responded instantly, sliding partially into the room without breaking the null field. Its head bent down, looming, but it did not strike. It smelled the room. Names. Intentions. Past crimes. Future possibilities. "Some of you," it said softly, "deserve mercy. Others deserve a memory that lasts longer than fear." The cadets who had tried to kill Mara in class, the ones who planted the plasma mine, vanished shortly afterward. Their records were expunged. Officially, they left the academy voluntarily. Unofficially, their ships were later found drifting at the edge of Coalition space. Hulls intact. Crews missing. The only evidence: scratches inside the command decks, claw marks burned into the metal, and a single message carved in multiple human languages. "She is not alone." Mara didn't gloat. That was human arrogance, and she had learned restraint. But she let them know. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for decades. They'd assumed that the humans were fragile, emotional, unarmed. That the species couldn't compete with eons of alien evolution. Now they understood the first critical truth. Humans didn't just survive monsters. Humans befriended them. And monsters, real, ancient, hungry monsters, did not forgive attempts on their humans. The professors debated. The security teams scrambled. Coalition leadership held emergency meetings. No one wanted to admit it, but Mara's presence in the academy had shattered their assumptions. Meanwhile, she prepared for the real test. Because the galaxy was about to learn the second truth. Humans didn't just defend themselves. Humans retaliated. And retaliation was nothing like mercy. 3 weeks later, the retaliation came, not as a warning, but as an inevitability. The Jacquard Dominion, a species that prided itself on surgical precision and absolute control, had deemed humans strategically unstable. They sent a strike force to Earth's outer colonies. Mining stations were incinerated. Civilian transports vanished without a trace. They thought this would force humanity to rein in its cadets, to apologize for their chaos. Mara stood on the bridge of the UNV Black Audit, watching stars stretch into lines as the fleet jumped through hyperspace. Around her, human officers moved with grim, methodical efficiency. No speeches. No waving flags. War, to humanity, was accounting, and they were very good at it. The monster from the lecture hall loomed behind her, partially phased into the deck. Its massive form bent space slightly, shadows pooling unnaturally, reflecting nothing from the overhead lights. "Targets?" it asked, voice low and measured. "Military only," Mara replied. Her tone was quiet, but every syllable carried authority. "No civilians." There was a pause. Then the creature's red eyes glimmered. "I can obey that. I will not enjoy it." The Jacquard had numbers, fleets that blot out systems, doctrine built on terror, years of experience wiping civilizations clean. They did not expect humanity to do this, to board their ships. To take the fight directly into the command decks. Drop pods screamed through void shields, puncturing the Dominion vessels. Human Marines poured into corridors armed with old-fashioned kinetics, pulse rifles, and devices the Dominion had never seen. Dark laughter echoed through communications, manic, relentless, uncontainable. Resistance hardened, but the monster didn't smash. It didn't rampage. It taught. Doors that should have been impregnable opened to its will. Weapon systems failed at its presence. Warriors confronted it and froze as it whispered their names, their fears, their memories of past failures, details only a perfect predator could know. Admirals crumbled under the weight of inevitability, begging for surrender before the lesson truly began. 7 hours later, the war was over. Mara walked through the remnants of the Dominion fleet, her boots echoing against the scorched decks. Survivors knelt, unarmed, terrified, and utterly compliant. "You tried to kill me in class," she said softly, letting the words hang in the air. "You killed my people instead." She leaned closer. "And this?" She gestured slightly, and the monster's presence pressed into the room, vast and patient. "Is me being restrained?" The Dominion signed unconditional surrender. Coalition diplomats and strategists watched in silence, faces pale. Some called it a miracle. Others, a reckoning. Humanity had become a force no empire could calculate, no doctrine could contain. And Mara? She returned to class. Not to gloat. Not to teach fear. But to remind the galaxy that humans were not monsters, but they owned monsters, and they were very, very good at letting the universe know it. In classrooms, in corridors, in hushed halls, whispers spread, "She is not alone." The galaxy would remember it. Forever. Because humans didn't just defend themselves. Humans didn't just fight back. Humans taught lessons, and sometimes those lessons came with claws, teeth, and fire that no one could outrun. The lecture hall never felt the same. Cadets no longer whispered behind Mara's back. They didn't test boundaries. Even the bravest, those who once laughed at the idea of humans, kept their distance. Professor Croth had stopped using humans as examples of manageable species altogether. Under Mara's desk, the monster rested. Coiled like a predator in repose, it seemed smaller now, almost contained, yet its presence was undeniable. The faint red glow in the shadows pulsed with patient power. "Do they still fear you?" it asked, voice like gravel over glass. Mara shrugged. "They should." A young cadet, tentatively stepping forward, cleared his throat. His skin shimmered faintly, Varkle, barely a cycle old. "Cadet Vance, why didn't you wipe out the Jacquard completely? The Dominion? You had the power." Mara looked at him for a long, deliberate moment. Her eyes were tired but bright, sharp as broken glass. "Because I wanted them to remember," she said. "Fear fades. Memory lasts." The monster shifted beneath her desk. A low rumble, almost a purr, vibrated the floorboards. Its eyes gleamed, reflecting light like molten red gold. Everyone in the room felt it, felt them, without seeing a thing. As Mara packed her notes and stood, she tapped the desk twice. The monster unfurled like smoke, enormous and impossible, bending the room slightly as it followed her out. Whispers erupted in its wake, though no one could say whether they were real or imagined. Humanity is not just dangerous. Humanity is a force of nature. Mara smiled faintly. She didn't gloat. The galaxy had a long memory, and it needed it. Some lessons required more than fear, they demanded respect, restraint, and understanding. "They're learning," she said softly, glancing back at the cadets still trembling in the hall. "Finally!" The monster purred beneath the floorboards, a deep, patient vibration that resonated in every chest. It dreamed of a universe that would never hurt its human again. Mara stepped out into the corridor, boots echoing against the polished floor, and the galaxy held its breath. They had underestimated humanity once. They would never make that mistake again. Because humans didn't just survive. Humans didn't just fight. Humans forged allies from nightmares. And when the universe threatened them, humanity, and everything they protected, became unstoppable.